Welcome back, everybody. This is Jason Suchomel with my partner in crime, Cole Patterson, sitting there back on the Orange Bloods YouTube channel for another recruiting video. We did one last week, kind of our countdown to National Signing Day. Cole, as I look at it, today is the 16th of November. We are officially less than a month from the first day of that signing window. Starts December 15th. So that countdown is officially on. We promised people we'd be back to do a video post weekend, post recruiting visits. Texas had a lot of guys in. So here we are back to talk about a big recruiting weekend. Didn't go the way people wanted it to on the field, of course, but that doesn't stop the fact that they had a bunch of offensive linemen on official visits. They had a quarterback on an official visit. Some underclassmen came in. I'm going to start with you, Cole. You saw DJ Campbell, Devon Campbell, the big lineman out of Arlington, Bowie, the five-star offensive lineman. You got to talk to him in person on Monday afternoon. Let's just get to the meat and potatoes here. What was your vibe after talking to DJ Campbell?
Yeah, I was out there. I guess I was yesterday, Monday. Got to talk to him and gave me a pretty good, conversation. Like a 30-minute sit down. He just opened up to me, kind of talked to me about the recruiting process. Could tell that he's one of those guys that's ready to get it over. He told me he's also kind of enjoying it because he knows it's almost over. Like you said, we're less than a month away, which is kind of crazy to think about. And season's flown by, but yeah, he's been on Texas's radar for a while now. This guy who Texas wanted for, I guess, since his sophomore year of high school. He told me that they're the fifth school to offer him. He told me they're the first big school to offer him, and they've kind of been at the top of his list since then, despite some down years, down performances. He's always had Texas at the top. And it seems like that's still the overall feeling, at least what I got, talking to him. I posted something on Orange Bloods. I guess that was last night, and we'll have some more stuff on in the war room on Thursday. And I like where Texas is at. Obviously, like you said, they lost to Kansas. That's probably not what the expectation was going into the weekend, but he told me he's one of those guys who doesn't really look at wins or losses. He knows there's so much more to it, especially with the first-year staff. I asked him how it was being around other recruits. He said it was nice to be around other guys. He mentioned NATO and Kelvin Banks, QB Devin Brown, but he's a guy that keeps himself. He said he's really just, watching the game, wanted to be around the coaches kind of deal. He enjoyed his time with Coach Flood in the film room. He got to be around campus again. He told me it was like his fifth time at Texas, and I think even despite the loss, I think Texas is in a great spot right now. I think Oklahoma might be that other school that's, making it tough on Texas, but I really like where the Longhorns are at despite the loss to Kansas.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've talked to some of the recruits that were there. I've talked to parents. I've talked to sources on the Texas side. A loss is not what you ever want when you're hosting big recruits.
Yeah.
The fifth straight loss is certainly never what you want. Okay. But I don't get the sense, weirdly, that anybody's panicking over that. The recruits don't seem too bothered by it. I talked to a Texas source and I said, hey, do you feel like y'all made progress this week with these linemen? And the message I got was absolutely, with I think 3 or 4 exclamation points following it. So, I mean, I think people at Texas feel that things went pretty well overall. Recruits, I've been doing this a long time, Cole, probably damn near as long as you've been alive. And recruits never get as high or low on wins and losses as fans do. They are able to take a much bigger picture approach to it. And I think Texas did a good job this weekend of selling recruits, their parents, their guardians, whoever. Hey, this is year one. These are not our guys necessarily. I mean, yeah, we want to be playing better, but we're trying to get our guys in here, get our culture. And what they really keep stressing to these offensive linemen, and you and I talked about it last week. Hey, early playing time. And it's legit, man. These guys look at the field and they see the depth chart and they see who's leaving and they see that there's not a lot of depth. These linemen, from the ones I've talked to, see it and they understand it. And they also, Texas is doing a good job, or did a good job, I think, of telling these guys, we don't just need one of y'all, man. If we can get 2 or 3, 4 of you to come in together, that could be huge for Texas. I connected with someone close to Kam Dewberry, said, hey, it was a great visit. The Texas coaches did a a really good job of kind of selling their vision, kind of big picture wise and some small picture wise. Like here's exactly where you would fit. But here's the big picture of where we want to take this and why it's important, why you're important to our class. Will it be enough? I don't know. I mean, at some point, I'm curious to hear your opinion on this. You're selling these kids on a picture that they can paint in their brain, right? But it is a picture they have to formulate in their brain. Okay, hey, if I come there, then Texas gets back, and I can see us competing for championships, and the stadium's full, and so on and so forth. They can look at Oklahoma, they can look at Alabama, A&M to some degree with what the way A&M is recruiting, and they can say, okay, I don't have to visualize it there. I see it there. Do you think with a guy like DJ Campbell, Texas can get him to buy in with a little bit of blind faith that it's going to take?
I think, again, just talking to Campbell, I forgot what the exact question was. It may have been if losing to Kansas is going to play a role in who he decides to. And before I could even really ask, he cut me off. He was like, no, I don't care about a win or a loss. I don't really care about what they're doing right now. He's like, I understand they're kind of rebuilding and all of that. He told me the message to him and Cam and Kelvin Banks and NATO all on campus was, like you said, we need guys to come in and play. And, a lot of that, it's just a recruiting pitch. It doesn't always come to fruition, especially on the offensive line. You don't really want inexperienced guys down there. Mm-hmm. But I think Texas is in such a state where they need talent more than anything else. And like you said, they're selling these guys on playing it right away together. Obviously, if they can land any of these guys, that'd be a big win for Texas at this point. But I think their goal is to obviously land at least two, if not the whole group. And talking to Campbell, he was telling me that that's really what they stressed this weekend is that, hey, we need you guys to come in and change the program. And like you said, they see what A&M's doing. They see what Alabama's doing, Oklahoma. LSU's having it down here, but they won the title a couple of years ago. So, I mean, stuff like that, Texas is kind of beyond the eight ball. But I think Campbell in particular, I think really gets the message. He has a chance to play early, and I think that's really resonating with him. He told me that two of his bigger factors in his recruitment were, one, be playing early. That's not the end all be all, but he wants to play, obviously. And then two, development of players, and he spoke pretty highly of Kyle Flood's track record. So, but yeah, I mean, I think getting all those guys on campus at the same time. Obviously, you want them on campus regardless. Maybe some here, some there, but to getting them all on the same weekend, despite the result on the field, I think was pretty big and has a chance to pay off. In I guess less than a month.
Yeah, a lot of times it's better to get those guys maybe in a smaller group or even on a one-on-one visit because you can really lay out the red carpet for them. But I think for what Texas needs, getting those guys in together, those offensive linemen, was a stroke of genius that I think worked out pretty well. Another guy that was in town, quarterback Devin Brown. I don't want to ignore him. Rivals 100 player out of Utah. I'm still digging around on Devin Brown, and I've talked to our couple West Coast sources. I still think it's going to be Texas. He's visited Ole Miss. He's going to Ohio State on a visit. Still committed to USC, but people I'm talking to don't think USC is going to be a big factor in the end. So we may do a follow-up on Devin Brown if we can get a little bit more background and information on him. But everything I'm kind of hearing grapevine talk, I think Texas did a good job with him. And he's another guy, listen, if you talk about early playing time, and Casey Thompson played very well on Saturday night. So, but the quarterback position, it's been a talking point all year. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride and up and down. So I think I'm sure Devin Brown probably sees an opportunity for early playing time. Yeah. I want to pose a question that I'm going to ask to you, and then we'll end this this modcast or podcast, I guess, on a few questions that fans submitted to me that I'll ask to you as well. But I was talking to a source on Sunday after all the visits wrapped up. And I asked this person, I said, I want you to rank 1 through 5. And we haven't talked about Cameron Williams, a big offensive lineman from DeSoto or Duncanville. It was already also there. Excuse me. Almost the Cardinals in DeSoto and Duncanville. But from Duncanville, that was already also there. And he's also committed to Oregon, as is Kelvin Banks. So I said, hey, rank them 1 through 5. And at this time, he ranked 1 through 4, so he didn't put Williams in there. But 1 through 4 will go on who you feel Texas has the best options of landing. And he went with DJ Campbell 1, it was Cam Dewberry 2,
Mm.
and then he went Kelvin Banks 3, because Kelvin Banks is committed to Oregon. In NATO, he put 4th simply because this person said, I don't have a clue what NATO is going to do. NATO
I don't think
Umeozulu. I mean,
anybody does.
nobody does. The people who hung out with him this weekend don't. And I said, okay, that's pretty interesting. And I kind of felt the same way. But then the more I thought about it, I'll give you my answer. I'm just curious. I went with, I think DJ Campbell is clearly number one on everybody's list in that group. I went Kelvin Banks second. I'll tell you why. Yes, he's committed to Oregon, but he's been talking to Texas a long time. The things I've heard is that Kyle Flood and Texas have done a good job since he committed to Oregon. They've continued to build that relationship, maybe even strengthen it. If he comes to Texas on a visit, which he did, he's clearly, he can say, oh, no, I'm 100% committed to Oregon. No, you're not, dude. If you're taking visits, you're not 100% committed. You're keeping your mind open. You're looking for a potential backup plan. So I went Kelvin Banks second, thinking, okay, you know, when this calendar flips to December, maybe he thinks, hey, you know what? I don't want to go so far away from home. Maybe Oregon's not the place for me. I'm going to go to Texas. I went there and visited. I really liked it. I can go there with DJ Campbell, maybe a Kam Dewberry, whoever. So I went DJ Campbell, Kelvin Banks, and then I went Kam Dewberry, and I put NATO 4th as well, just because I don't have a feel for NATO. Something tells me we may be underestimating Texas's chances with NATO, though, because there sure as hell isn't any other school that's a front runner with NATO. So I'm curious of that group of 4, and we'll leave Cameron Williams out of it since the source I asked didn't include him. But how would you rank those 4 in terms of Texas's chances to sign those guys?
Yeah, I definitely think Campbell's at the top. We've kind of covered him a lot. At number 2 is interesting because, like you said, if you're 100% committed, probably not going to take many visits around this year. I know everybody wants to enjoy their recruitment, things like that. But as we've discussed, we're less than a month from signing day. He's not taking a summer visit because he has nothing to do. You know, he's taking a weekend visit to an in-state program that's been talking to him this whole time. And it's kind of a different situation, different recruitment. But I always think about when Oregon comes into Texas, I always think about Kyler Murray. And I went to high school with Kyler. He wanted to go to Oregon. That was kind of his school, but too far from home in the end. And A&M ended up winning out. You know, just different recruitment, different kind of person. But Oregon's far from Texas, obviously. And I think just when push comes to shove, it's going to be hard for guys to go out of state that far. Not talking about Banks, he won't go there, but I think there is probably some truth into him maybe thinking about staying in state. He obviously sees the time playing early. Those opportunities are there for him at Texas. He gets to be close to home. Texas, like you said, was pretty high on his list before he did commit to Oregon. I don't know. I think him and Dewberry can be pretty interchangeable. Obviously, you didn't want Dewberry to see them lose to Kansas, but I mean, he, like you said, your source said he enjoyed his time. There's been guys on Twitter like Brendan Thompson and Derek Brown kind of tweeting at him saying, you know, Dewberry to Austin. Brendan Harris tweet, untamed, just kind of his, you know, his phrase, his slogan, whatever you want to call it. So I think Texas in position there. I'll go Dewberry 2, just because he's uncommitted. And then I'll go, if that's a tiebreaker, then I'll go Banks 3. And NATO, like you said, I think we are underestimating him just because, like, you know, we broke the news of him visiting in Austin at the end of July. He took a visit when I guess he was probably trying to keep it under wraps because he doesn't really talk to anybody, but you know, he visited Austin there. He was there this past weekend. Him and Campbell are pretty close. You know, they both kind of, some personalities don't really like to, you know, they're kind of introverted, don't really want to talk to a lot of people, and they seem to get along really well. That's one of the guys that Campbell has brought up to me, you know, multiple times. And but yeah, like, it's so hard to get a read on him. You kind of have to put him 4th, so that's where I'll put him. But I think Texas has a good chance. They got him on campus. We'll see what happens. And I think the biggest factor there is, like you said, there's not that one team that people think they have to beat. There's not the A&M. There's not the Oklahoma. You know, he took a visit to USC over the summer, but they've kind of faded away because of the coaching situation. So, and it kind of feels crazy to say, but Texas does have a, you know, good shot at it. Realistic shot at least 2 or 3 of these guys, not all 4.
Yeah, I feel like probably NATO shouldn't be 4th on my list, but I don't know where the hell else to put him. So I'm just going to go ahead and put him 4. I don't know. Should he be 2nd, 3rd? Hell, he might be number 1. I don't know. He's such a wild
Just
card. I'm
doesn't
just putting him forth.
doesn't like to talk. It's hard to read. But I think those 2 visits to Austin are, I mean, they say follow the visits. I think that's
Texas
could be
offered
worth
his
it.
younger brother who was with him
Yeah.
over the weekend.
Mhm.
So, maybe they can sell both those guys on coming in. So,
Mhm.
every other week on Orange Bloods, I do a Q&A. I have readers send in questions, and I get so many of them, I have to weed through them. Some are silly, some are legit. After
Yeah.
a bad week like this, it's like, oh, everything going to hell in a handbasket? So I just picked 3 of them, Cole, and I'll pose the question, and you and I will both answer them, and we can keep our answers pretty short on this, but maybe just something we can introduce, and even our YouTube viewers can submit questions from time to time if they want. And you can always email me at jason@orangebloods.com if you have something you want us to talk about or address. So the first question I have, and maybe it's a guy we've just been talking about, who's the highest rated recruit Texas will land in this class after the second signing day? So I'm assuming that could be someone who signs early or signs in February. Who do you feel will be the highest rated recruit in this class?
Mm. You said a second one?
Well, either just in the
Either.
class entirely, yeah.
Okay. I'll go with Campbell right now then. Like I
Mhm.
said, I think Texas is in a great spot for him. He really likes Texas. I think him and Kyle Flood have a really good relationship. He sees the opportunity for early playing time. He's top 20 player, top 25 player in the country, a consistent 5-star. So I think he's the easy one. Obviously, they got chances at Denver Harris, Evan Stewart, but I think Campbell is their best bet for that top rated guy.
Yeah, that's the same. You and I both kind of took the safe route there, but he seems like
Yeah.
the guy they have the highest chances in. I mean, we've talked about some other 5-star linemen. You mentioned Evan Stewart, the wide receiver, Denver Harris, the quarterback. Any or all of those guys could wind up being in this class. Probably not all, but some of them could. But
Mhm.
DJ Campbell seems like the most likely. So that was my
Mhm.
answer on the Q&A as well. Second question, I'll be curious to see if our answers line up on this one. We have not talked about these before. So who's the one commitment Texas cannot afford to lose in this class?
Ooh, it's a good question.
It was pretty easy for me. It popped right into my head. So I'm curious to see who you go with.
Okay. I'll think about the offensive line, but you don't want to lose Connor Robinson or Connor or yeah, Connor Robinson or
Cole,
Cole Hudson,
Cole
excuse
Hudson,
me.
right? Mhm.
But I'll go with Malik Murphy,
Same, yeah.
quarterback. Yeah, I mean we talked about the quarterback situation. They're showing interest in Devin Brown, but at the end of the day, you can't lose Malik Murphy. That's a guy that he's has Texas in the race with Harry Perkins, all those guys. People like him. He's most important position on the field. And so I'll go with him. Trying to think of maybe a different answer just to be different.
No, it's all right. Hey, we haven't
I'll
discussed
say
this, so
I'll throw out Brennan Thompson. They need
he's a good
another
one. Yeah.
receiver. They need explosive threat opposite of Xavier Worthy. So I'll say him. Brennan
Okay.
Thompson.
Well, either one. Brandon Thompson would be good, especially if they don't land Evan Stewart. I thought Malik just A is the quarterback position,
Yeah.
B the Texas quarterback position. I don't want to say it's in shambles. That's a little extreme, but it
Mhm.
needs strength in numbers.
Yeah.
You got to keep throwing numbers at it. He's a dynamic personality. He's
Mhm.
actually had a really good senior season, so who's to say he can't come in and maybe help pretty early? And
Yeah.
if he comes in and plays well and ends up being a factor for Texas, I think he will really open up pipelines in California because he's a
Mhm.
guy other West Coast kids will follow if they see him having success at Texas. So I
Yeah.
also went with Malik Murphy. Um, and the last one, it's a little Debbie Downer question, if you will, but it said, how many of the current commits do you think Texas might lose if things don't, if things keep trending downward on the field? And who are the guys that you would watch most closely on that commitment list?
Yeah. We might have some similar answers here as well. I guess I'll go with the 2 running backs. They
Mhm.
both have had some questions around them. Talking about Jaden Blue and Jamarion Miller. There were some whispers, some smoke a couple weeks ago about Blue potentially reopening his recruitment. Maybe
Jaden Blue
initial.
did come to the game on Saturday,
Yeah.
which I think helps. Jamarian told me he was coming, but I don't think he made it in. But
Okay.
yeah, but both those guys, you're
Mhm.
right. There was some
Yeah,
chatter.
Miller visited Alabama. Was that last week before, something like that? Pretty recently. So Alabama's never. You don't ever want to overlook Alabama in recruiting. player position like that. So I think those are two guys, two high 4-star running backs that if you want to worry about, I think those are pretty two easy answers.
Yeah, those two would be on my list, and the other ones I would point to Armani Winfield, the
Mhm.
wide receiver out of Louisville, who's taken an official visit and an unofficial visit to Michigan State.
Yeah.
LSU, he visited LSU, so who knows what's happened with those coaching situations there. But I think you have to keep an eye on Armani Winfield. And then the other one, if I'm putting one at the top of my list, it still might be Jamon Tapp. I think there are some things that need to be resolved there.
Mhm.
He's defensive lineman, linebacker out of Louisiana. I just think there's some things that need to be resolved there. So I would keep an eye on Jamon Tapp and Armani Winfield as well. Now, those guys are saying the right things behind the scenes. The
Yeah.
recruits have a group text chain, and in talking to some of those guys, they're all saying the right things. And Jamarian's saying, "Yeah, I'll be there in January." I think Armani's even said he's going to enroll in January. So people are like, "Hey, man, that's 2 months away. They're planning on being here early." So, but I do still think you need to watch those two.
Yeah.
And again, I would keep an eye on Jamon Tapp as well. Like there's some wrinkles that need to be ironed out there. So, Cole, good stuff. Like I said, we may follow up on this if we gather some more on some other players that were in town later in the week. Maybe we'll record another one of these later in the week, but we will definitely be doing them more regularly. I'm Jason Suchomel. That's Cole Patterson. This is your Orange Bloods YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Hit the bell for notifications. Like it. Hit questions, anything you have, you can post them in there. Email me at jason@orangebloods.com. We are on our countdown to National Signing Day, less than a month away. So a lot of big things happening. Things are really starting to pick up. The wheels are in motion in recruiting. So appreciate everybody listening, or everybody watching rather. And we will be back soon with another edition to talk more and more recruiting. Thanks for watching.